Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about the possibility of a Metroid Prime 4 gameplay teaser in 2023. So I decided to make this video this week because I had a little bit of a debate with Nintendo Prime on our podcast this Monday, and we were making our predictions for 2023, and when it came to Metroid, Nate was dead set on there being no Metroid at all in 2023, to which I strongly disagreed, but I feel like I didn't entirely focus on why I believe Metroid would be coming out in 2023, or something Metroid coming out in 2023, and then that would eventually lead to Metroid Prime 4 at the end of 2024. So basically what I'm getting at here is I still believe that Metroid Prime 4 will be talked about at some point in 2023. I think there will be an actual gameplay teaser. What kind of teaser? I'm basically thinking something like some of the teasers we've gone for Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe something like the first one, although I think we'll see some gameplay, so maybe it'll be more like the second one. But definitely I think we are close to getting a teaser for Metroid Prime 4, and I think it's pretty darn likely for this year, and there's a few reasons why. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing I feel like I need to discuss, though, is just kind of like the history of the different going-ons of Metroid Prime 4. And a lot of this is rumor, so please take it with a grain of salt, but I feel the sources are pretty good. So, for example, a lot of the things we're going to be discussing here come from Imran Khan. Imran Khan is a known industry insider, not someone who necessarily reports on leaks and rumors, just someone who's been an editor at different gaming sites who has an inside knowledge on the going-ons of the industry, and a few times he's spoken out on the Metroid Prime 4 situation. So we're going to bring his stuff up from him, and I'll source some of that in the description below. But then I'm also going to be bringing up other people like Nate the Hate, Jeff Grubb, Emily Rogers, when it comes to the Metroid Prime Remaster situation. And I understand people have a doubt about Metroid Prime Remaster at this point because they go back a couple of years ago. It was first discussed that it would be a Metroid Prime trilogy, and now it's just the Metroid Prime Remaster, and then Jeff Grubb was dead set on it coming out the holiday of 2022. He even put out a bet saying that he would shave his head, and he had to shave his head because Metroid Prime Remaster did not come out. So we're going to talk about all of that, but I think that just because it didn't happen, it doesn't mean that they've lost credibility. You gotta take into consideration here that when we're talking about things that haven't been confirmed or announced yet, there's always a possibility that something can be pushed up or delayed or what have you, or even canceled. And when you take a look at the track history of these people, they're pretty good. Let's keep in mind that Jeff Grubb told us about 3D All-Stars. People dialed on him all throughout the year, and he was steadfast in it happening. Even 2 weeks before its announcement, we still didn't know about it. Then all of a sudden, we got the Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, and in an unprecedented fashion, Nintendo announced and released 3D All-Stars within about 2 weeks, which was insane. And Jeff Grubb told us the 3D All-Stars would happen in the year of 2020. Now, we also heard about things like Pikmin 3 Deluxe from the Emily Rogers, the Nate the Hates, the Jeff Grubbs of the world, and that came to fruition. 2D Metroid, which we now know as Metroid Dread, from them as well. Fire Emblem, from them as well. So the point is, there's been a lot of things they've told us that have come to fruition, and actually, when it comes to the actual games, pretty much every single game they've told us about has eventually come out. It's simply been an issue of getting the timing right. So when it comes to Metroid Prime Remaster, just because it didn't come out the holiday of 2022 doesn't mean it's not coming out in my eyes. I just think it means, okay, they weren't ready to release it yet. And let's get to that first. Why didn't Metroid Prime Remaster come out holiday 2022? Well, I think it has to do with the fact that Prime 4 simply wasn't ready. So why should this matter? Well, going into 2022, something I was talking about on the channel for a while was that Nintendo has this kind of plan to really build up the IP for Metroid. So they came out with Metroid Dread, and it was a big focus of E3 2021. Nintendo heavily marketed the game. There was so many different things they were doing to talk about Metroid Dread, and Metroid Dread has performed relatively well, just south of 3 million, which I think it will eventually get to. But our speculation is that after Metroid Dread in the first half of 2022, they would give us free DLC updates to keep that Metroid discussion going, which they did. We were right about that, but we were also optimistic that E3 would happen, Nintendo would have a presence at E3, they would announce the rumored Metroid Prime Remaster, that would come out in the second half of 2022, but they would also tease Metroid Prime 4, and that would lead into 2023 where the game would come out. But Prime Remaster never happened. E3 was cancelled, and there's been no mention of Prime Remaster at all, and now a lot of people are skeptical that Prime Remaster is even happening. I still think it's happening because of the track record of the people that have talked about this. There are so many other games, as I've already listed, that they talked about way before they were going to come out, and they came out. So I don't all of a sudden doubt the existence of Prime Remaster. On top of that, it just makes sense for there to be a Prime Remaster. Let's think about this for a moment. Metroid Prime initially came out in the year 2002. We are now at the very end of 2022. It has been 2 decades. And even the last installment in the series, Metroid Prime 3, came out in 2007. Now they had the trilogy, which combined all 3 games that were a little bit of a minor remastering there in 2009, but still, that was a very long time ago. So it makes sense for Nintendo to put out something before Prime 4 for this whole other new generation of gamers so they can learn about the Metroid Prime series, build up that hype, build up that conversation. That way people will be even more ready for Metroid Prime 4. And also consider this, look at how Nintendo has treated both Zelda and Xenoblade. We got Skyward Sword HD, and now we're getting Tears of the Kingdom. Before Breath of the Wild, the year beforehand, we got Twilight Princess HD, then they came out with Breath of the Wild in the next year. And then let's take a look at Xenoblade Chronicles. They came out with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and then not too long afterwards, we got Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So Nintendo has shown us that they do like to come out with remasters of previous entries shortly before their next big installment. One, because yes, it's more additional sales and it's a great way to bring out another quality product for a modern generation, but it also gets more people into the fold of that series, gets them more understanding of the series, and builds up some hype and momentum leading into the next big game for that series. So the same logic would apply to Metroid as well, if not more so given the circumstances of its absence the last decade or so. So yes, I definitely think that a Metroid Prime remaster of some sort makes sense, and considering the track history other people have given us this rumor, I think it is happening. The timing has simply been off. And the reason why I think the timing has been off, it's my speculation here, is simply because Metroid Prime 4 just hasn't been ready. It was not ready for a 2023 release, so they didn't want to show off Metroid Prime Remaster, tease Prime 4, for Prime 4 to still be such a long ways off. But with an additional year on our belts, I feel like there's a stronger chance that Prime 4 is around the corner. Let's keep in mind that when they announced the restart of the project, because initially the game was announced in 2017, but they announced that they had to restart it in January of 2019. So when they announced this restart, I feel like it's reasonable to assume that they started maybe a couple months beforehand, or at least they knew that they were going to have to restart a couple months beforehand. Now maybe in the beginning it was just sort of like research and development and coming up with different concepts and ideas and like making different hirings, but that's when they announced the restart around then, and I'm talking about the game coming out at the end of 2024. So if they started just a few months before January 2019 when they made the announcement, we're talking about a 6-year time of development, not counting anything from the initial project that they started in 2017 supposedly. So it's been a long time. They've had a lot of time to work on this game. Granted, they had to go back to Retro Studios. They've been making a lot of hirings. There was a whole COVID situation. So yes, there's these different things that would hold the game back from coming out very quickly. But we're talking about 6 years here. A AAA developer could come out with 2 major games in that amount of time. Maybe those 2 major games aren't the biggest games in the world, but definitely that could happen. Let's also keep in mind The initial Metroid Prime only took 2 years of development. Of course, back when they started in 2000, they already had a first-person prototype working, so maybe let's throw in another year on their 3 years for Metroid Prime. It took them 3 years. Of course, there was crunch back then, which was not a great thing, so I understand that, but the point is, they were able to come out with Metroid Prime in 2 to 3 years, Metroid Prime 2 in 2 years, Metroid Prime 3 in 2 to 3 years, like, those games came out pretty quick. Of course, now games are a little bit bigger, there's HD development, there's these different things, but again, we're talking about a 6-year gap here. So I think it's fairly reasonable to think that they could come out with Prime 4 by the end of 2024. It's not a given, it could take longer, but I don't think I'm crazy to think that that could happen. I think it's a fairly reasonable expectation. But while I think it is a reasonable expectation, it is still an assumption, so let's keep that in mind. But assuming Prime 4 does come out at the end of 2024, I think it does make sense to start teasing this game in 2023. Let's think about something else here. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo teased this game back at 2019, and I think, honestly, that was a little bit of a mistake. They took too long with this game. They should have waited to announce it a little bit more because we've been waiting for so long, and it's been a little exasperating. But it's been something that us Nintendo fans have had something to sort of cling to for all this time. It's something that keeps that conversation going, that hype. Nintendo wants that. So what happens after the release for Tears of the Kingdom? What do we cling on to then? Interestingly, Tears of the Kingdom comes out in May, and if all things go well, E3 won't be cancelled this year. Perhaps Nintendo will have a presence at E3 in June, and they will be making some announcements. That seems fairly likely, because usually we see announcements then. Now, we didn't have those announcements that were exactly around the time we wanted to this year because E3 was cancelled, but assuming E3 is not cancelled, then maybe we finally get another E3 Direct where there's a history of big announcements. So, with Metroid Prime 4 getting ever closer and closer to a release, with Tears of the Kingdom finally coming out this May, it makes sense for Nintendo to show off something else to really appeal to that core Nintendo fan base, to keep them hyped, to keep them talking about the next big cool project. So I think that actually strengthens the idea that perhaps Prime 4 could be shown off this year. And with that, I also think a Prime Remaster would likely finally be announced, because the idea would be that if they're going to tease Prime 4 now, it's because it's not that far off. Like a 2024 second half of the year release is within their expectations, so they give us a Prime Remaster now to whet our appetite, bring in more of that younger generation in there, get them acquainted with the Metroid Prime series, and then after that start to really market Prime 4. I think this is how things are going to shake out. Let's keep in mind that when they showed off Metroid Dread, they had to tell us that development was going well for Metroid Prime 4. They can't just give us a Metroid product and not say anything. So, yes, I do think that when Metroid Prime Remaster is announced, hopefully maybe June of this year at E3, they will also make mention of Prime 4, but when I say mention, I'm thinking we finally do get a little bit of a teaser here. And again, I think this teaser will be something like what they've shown for Tears of the Kingdom, one of those trailers. Nothing significant, but enough for us to kind of extrapolate information, make theory videos, have discussions, analyze what they're showing off, and that'll tide us over into the next year when they're finally ready to really start kicking up the hype train and marketing Prime 4. But there's another angle here I want to throw out, and that's new hardware. I've been speculating that I think it makes more sense for new hardware to come out in 2023 because of Tears of the Kingdom, and potentially a major Mario game that could be coming out because of the Mario movie. So I think Nintendo's going to want to probably push hardware alongside one of those games. But there is a whole other angle here that maybe 2023 is too soon. And most people seem to think that if it's not 2023, it's definitely 2024. So if that's the case, well, Prime 4 is likely going to be one of the most impressive games Nintendo has put together from a visual perspective, from a performance perspective, and it's going to be something they're going to want to use to tout that power boost of their next system. So that's something else I think should be taken into consideration here. They may be lining things up for this hardware. So even though I think new hardware makes more sense for 2023, if you're in the camp of 2024, then Metroid Prime 4 definitely makes sense to be showcased to some extent by that point. So even if I'm wrong and a Prime 4 teaser doesn't happen in 2023, and I'm also wrong about new hardware coming out at some point in 2023, 2024 is really not that far off, and it does make sense for Nintendo to start marketing both of these things. So I'm hedging my bets here, and I am predicting that Prime Remaster is real. It's coming out this year of 2023, not 2022. And alongside this Prime Remaster announcement, they will finally tease just a little bit of Prime 4, giving us something to get excited about until 2024, when they really start to market everything about this game. But what do you guys think? What do you make of this Metroid Prime 4 situation? Do you think the game is further out? Do you think it's going to be canceled? Do you think I'm on the money? Do you think it's perhaps coming out even sooner? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.